People often assume you need to spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars to get a decent watch. But if you know what to look for, you can find some pretty amazing watches for $100 or even under $100. And that's what I want to focus on in this video today. I went searching around to find the best watches I could for $100 or less, and I'm going to show you 7 great options today. But I don't want to just show you 7 watches and recommend that you go buy these specific ones. I want to tell you why I picked them so that you can help to determine what a good watch is, where you should go to find watches in this price range, and give you the tools to help you find a great affordable watch that matches your needs and personality. This video is sponsored by Anson Belts. Tell you more about them in a minute, but first let's talk about why this $100 price point is something that's worth looking at. I think for a lot of people, $100 is what they would like to spend on sort of their first good watch. Maybe they're moving on from using digital watches, or they want something that looks nicer than a smartwatch. That was kind of the category that I found myself in when I started my watch collecting hobby and also when I started this channel. Now, that was 8 years ago, and watch prices have gone up since then, so there's less options at around $100 than there were then. But there are still a lot of great options out there, and I'm not just talking about Casio digital watches. I've covered those often here on the channel, and I'll be making more videos about them in the future. But in this video, I want to focus on analog watches. Again, something that looks nicer, something that's going deeper into the watch collecting hobby. And at this $100 price point, there's kind of 3 main types of watches, or 3 places that you would look for good watches at under $100. The first would be from discount retailers like Amazon or Joma Shop, and this is where you can find watches from major brands, established brands like Timex or Citizen, Seiko, Bulova, or Casio. But right now in 2026, some of the best values are actually found on sites like AliExpress, where watches are sold direct from factories in China. The final category you should look at are microbrands. Now, like I said, I found 7 watches across these 3 categories that I'm going to show you today. And let's start with 3 that I picked up on Amazon. If you're going to go to a discount retailer like Amazon, probably the most important thing you can look for is a watch from a reputable brand. And I would say the best 2 brands to look at in this price range would be Timex and Casio. And so it's no surprise that I have a watch from each of them that we're going to be looking at. So with that out of the way, let's look at our first watch, which is a watch from Timex. Timex is one of the best brands to look at in this price range, and I think they really represent this category well. I picked up this Timex Waterbury chronograph on sale for $100. Now, Timex does have a lot of watches that are significantly less expensive than this watch, but the Waterbury line of watches from Timex are sort of their premium versions of a lot of their more standard watches. One of the key upgrades that the Waterbury watches get is a full stainless steel case, whereas a lot of Timex's lower cost watches have a plated brass case. And Timex offers all kinds of different watches in this Waterbury series. You can get chronographs, you can get dive watches, you can get GMT watches. Most of these tend to have retail prices over $100, but on sites like Amazon, you can often find them for $100 or less. This one is a minimalist chronograph watch that's surprisingly full-featured. It comes on a simple black leather strap that's of decent quality, but cream dial watches like this really give you a lot of versatility when it comes to strap options, and I wanted to upgrade this to something a little bit more interesting. And I think it pairs great with this dark purple or maroon colored leather strap that I got from Strap Mill Canada. But getting back to the watch itself, in addition to the full stainless steel case, this watch has a surprisingly great quartz chronograph movement inside of it. So a chronograph is basically a stopwatch, but this one's a pretty advanced stopwatch for this price range. As is standard on chronograph watches, the main second hand remains stationary until you activate the chronograph, at which point this one begins ticking at 1-second increments. However, the subdial at 10 o'clock is also tracking tenths of a second, so when you stop the chronograph, it will display what the tenths of a second are, giving you a very accurate reading of the time. In addition to that, Timex went with a very interesting choice by foregoing the standard quick set date position on the movement. Instead, they allow you to jump the hour and 1 hour increments, which is a very rare feature that's extremely useful for traveling across different time zones. If you're familiar with the way the Miyota 9075 True GMT movement handles its date and time setting, this operates in the same way, except it's a quartz chronograph rather than an automatic GMT. Anyways, it's a surprisingly advanced and somewhat nerdy feature for a watch like this. And it makes a ton of sense for a quartz watch where you don't have to change the date very frequently. This also has Timex's awesome Indiglow feature, which is just the best way to illuminate an analog watch like this. Simply pressing in the crown will cause the entire dial to light up. And since the backlight is battery powered, it doesn't need to be charged by the sun. You don't have to worry about it wearing out over time. It's just always ready for you whenever you need it. Overall, this is a great watch for $100, but since it is a $100 watch from a major brand, you are only getting a mineral crystal, and it only includes 50 meters of water resistance, which is good enough, but not great. And of course, it features a quartz movement. Now, if you're looking at watches in this price range, chances are you're trying to level up your style a little bit, and a watch is a great way to do that, but it's not the only way. Another option would be to upgrade your belts as well, and that's where our sponsor Anson Belts comes in. Anson Belts are completely different from any other belts that I've worn. Rather than featuring holes, they have this really cool micro-adjust track system that makes the belt extremely easy to adjust, allowing you to get a perfect size every time you put the belt on. Also, because it doesn't rely on holes to keep the belts in place, it puts a lot less stress on the leather itself, and so Anson gives you a lifetime warranty on these belts. But for me, one of the coolest things about it is that they're completely customizable, and they have a ton of great belts and buckles to choose from that are all very high quality. One fun one that I got actually has a little zippered compartment on the back of it that you can stash some extra cash, just in case you want to have that extra peace of mind. I've been wearing mine nonstop since I got them, and they're easily the best belts I've ever known. Once you try it, you'll never go back to your old belts. And because Anson Belt and Buckle is sponsoring today's video, when you click the link in the description or scan the QR code to build a box set, you'll get 2 bonus pieces, a buckle and a strap completely free. That's 3 buckles, 3 straps, which can be mixed and matched into 9 unique belt combos all in one box. This is an exclusive deal you won't get anywhere else, so click the link, build your set, and upgrade your belt game today. Now, a site like Amazon is one of the safest places to buy a watch, or at least you would think. They have great customer service and great return policies, but the problem with Amazon is that there are a lot of terrible watches listed for under $100, and oftentimes the review system on Amazon can be gamed. For instance, I picked up this highly reviewed watch from Amazon, and it was completely terrible. And that's why going with a reputable brand is one of the smartest things you can do when you're hunting around on Amazon, and honestly, there's no better brand to go for in this price range than Casio. Now, Casio is primarily known for their digital watches in this price range, but they do have one legendary dive watch in the Casio MDV 107, also known as the Casio Duro. Casio has been making versions of this watch for decades now. It was famously worn by Bill Gates for many years. Unlike most of Casio's watches in this price range, this is made out of a full stainless steel case. It features 200 meters of water resistance with a screw-down crown to lock that in, making this a surprisingly capable dive watch at well under $100. It comes on a sturdy but not particularly comfortable resin strap, but a while back I spotted a guy wearing it on a NATO strap and I thought it looked really cool, so I wanted to try that out. The watch comes with 22mm lugs, which are pretty easy to source straps for, and I think it looks pretty cool like this, and definitely gives it a different personality. Now, since this is a dive watch, in addition to the high water resistance, it also includes a unidirectional timing bezel. Back in the day, this mechanism was used by scuba divers to time their dives, but it's actually a really functional timing mechanism that's very useful for pretty much anything. To use it, you just turn the bezel so that the triangle lines up with wherever the minute hand is at the moment. And from then on, if you read the time on the bezel, it will show you how many minutes have elapsed since you started the timer. And this kind of thing is way faster than pulling out a phone or even starting a timer on a digital watch. It's such a fun, cool, practical, and tactile timing mechanism. And in addition to all that, it just looks cool, especially with this bi-color version that Casio offers on the new MDV 107s. This one's the blue and red Pepsi version. There are 2 concerns you might have with this watch. One, it is fairly large at 44mm, so it might not look that great on a smaller wrist. Also, the lume is really not that great, so it's not going to glow very brightly for very long. But all things considered, for $60, this is an amazing watch that has a great track record. It's something that you know is going to be dependable for a very long time. Next, we have the Invicta Pro Diver 1953. Now, Invicta is one of the few major brands that's still offering automatic watches at $100 or less. Orient and Seiko used to have a lot of models in this price range, but they've all gone above that. But surprisingly, Invicta is still managing to put out these Pro Divers, and there's some really cool options. Most of the classic Pro Divers are homages of Rolex Submariner models. But I think this 1953 edition is special. It's an homage of the very first Rolex Submariner that was ever made. And as such, it looks very different from modern Rolex watches. Invicta ships this on a decent bracelet that's pretty comfortable. It features solid links, but it doesn't have solid end links. It's got hollow end links, so it doesn't give you the most seamless connection to the watch. But I wanted to change things up a bit and really lean into the vintage vibes of this watch. So I went with a black leather strap with a little stitching on the top, kind of a heritage leather style. and I think this pairing looks amazing. Some people have a hard time with leather straps on dive watches, but with vintage dive watches, this is kind of common. Now with this Pro Diver, Invicta stuck pretty close to what the original Submariner looked like, but they did change things up by including a bicolor bezel. And there's a few different color options. I went with the Coke version, the red and black, and I think it looks great. But just as important as the style of this watch, it features some pretty impressive specifications for a dive watch in this price range. Most notably, the very capable and dependable automatic movement from Seiko in the NH35. This is the exact same automatic movement that Seiko uses in their dive watches that cost upwards of $500. Additionally, like that Casio Duro, you're getting 200 meters of water resistance and a screw-down crown and that timing bezel. But also like the Casio, you're only getting a mineral crystal, which is going to be prone to scratching, and the lume, again, is not that great here. This watch also comes in at a more compact size at only 40 millimeters in diameter, so it's going to be a lot more wrist-friendly for a lot of people. But overall, it's a great watch, and I'm still surprised you can pick these up for around that $100 price point. Next, we're going to move on to Chinese watches, and my favorite place to get Chinese watches is from AliExpress. And in general, no matter what price you're paying, you're going to get a lot more for your money in terms of specification and components from a Chinese watch than you would from a major brand. But there are some downsides here. And while I've ordered a ton of watches from AliExpress, and most of them have been very high quality, there is definitely a higher rate of failure with watches that I've gotten from AliExpress than I've gotten from major brands. But that said, for $100, you can get some pretty amazing watches from AliExpress. So first off, we have a watch from Steeldive that I think perfectly exemplifies the strengths of these Chinese brands. From a specification standpoint, this watch is insane for $89. It includes that same Seiko NH35 automatic movement that we had in the Invicta. Again, that same movement that Seiko includes in their $500 dive watches. You're getting the 200 meters of water resistance and the screw-down crown, but this one includes a sapphire crystal, which is nearly scratch-proof. And the bezel insert here is made out of ceramic, which up until a few years ago is something you only found on luxury watches. The Casio and Invicta watches that we looked at earlier had aluminum bezel inserts, which are a lot more prone to scratching. Ceramic is almost scratch-proof. It also has a cool glossy finish, and this one is also fully lumed. Now, Steeldive offers this watch on a number of different strap options. I went with a stainless steel bracelet, even though I knew I wasn't going to wear the watch on the stainless steel bracelet. It's a high-quality bracelet with straight end links, which means that it can be attached to other watches, which is why I got it, but I don't think it matches this watch at all. Instead, I paired it up with a rubber strap that I also got off of AliExpress, and it's way more comfortable, and I think it suits the style of this watch much better. Like so many of the best watches on AliExpress, this is an homage to a classic watch. In this case, it's an homage to a military watch, the Benrus Type 2, which is one of my favorite military designs. This one also features a rotating bezel, but rather than having a timing scale, it's got a 12-hour scale, which is useful for tracking a second time zone. To do that, you'll rotate the bezel until you get the hour hand pointing to whichever time it is in your second time zone, and from there you can just read the second time on the bezel instead of on the dial. The watch features a very smooth, matte finish, sandblasted look that's very cool. The only drawback that I've found is the lume, which is very good except for the hands. The bezel and the dial markings last very long and glow very brightly, but the hands fade pretty quickly, which means that you're going to be left with a bunch of glowing numbers with no way to tell what time it actually is. Also, keep in mind that this is another big watch at 44 millimeters, so if you've got a slimmer wrist, you might want to stay away from it. Next, we've got the Addiesdive AD2030, which has a really cool dial that actually, I think they were the first ones I saw doing this dial. So this is kind of a level of originality that's unusual for watches in this price range, because you can pick up this watch for $48. Unfortunately, it also shows off some of the potential drawbacks of ordering watches direct from China like this. And that's because a couple days after I received this watch, I noticed that it had stopped working. As this is a quartz watch instead of an automatic watch, at first I suspected the battery had died, which would have been a big problem for a brand new watch. But it was actually worse than that. When I took it apart, I found that the hands had not been set properly, and so they had actually gotten stuck on each other, hitting each other. Now, I have a little bit of experience modifying watches, so I was able to fix it myself, but that's not something you should have to do. So if you wanted to avoid that, what you would do is you would file a report with AliExpress, and they normally take care of it if you do that within the first 30 days. But this kind of thing would have been a major disappointment and a hassle to get fixed. And unfortunately, it's something that I've had happen multiple times with watches that I've ordered from AliExpress. Not this exact problem, but similar things like this. But anyways, let's get back to the watch. This is the least expensive version that Addiesdive offers. Again, it features a quartz movement, but it's kind of a cooler quartz movement that features a smoother sweeping second hand rather than one that ticks every second. It also features a mineral crystal rather than a sapphire crystal. It is a full stainless steel watch with a full stainless steel bracelet and 100 meters of water resistance with a screw down crown, so decent specifications there. Unfortunately, it features a slightly unusual 19 millimeter lug width, which means that your strap options are going to be a little bit limited. And if you do buy a strap for this watch, it's probably not going to fit on any other watch that you have. And the bracelet is okay. It's comfortable, but it's a little bit loose and jangly. I don't know how it'll perform in the long run, but for a $48 watch, it's still better than it has any right to be. The real star of this watch is the textured 3D dial. To me, it looks like sand on the bottom of the ocean floor. And depending on the lighting angle, you can really see that this is a true 3D dial rather than just having something painted on to make it look like that. And at 37 millimeters, this is a smaller watch that has more of a vintage size, which helps to evoke some classic Rolex Oyster Perpetual vibes. But unfortunately, this watch also does fall victim to one other blunder that I see a lot of these Chinese brands doing, and that's that the logo is kind of hideous. It's also odd that this watch is made by a brand called Addiesdive, so you would think that they would be making dive watches, which they do, but this is definitely not a dive watch. This is much more of a classic sports watch with dress watch stylings, so having those goggles and crossed spear guns and the word Addiesdive written on the dial really clashes. So yeah, I think this one's definitely kind of a mixed bag. Some elements are really gorgeous and look really high quality, and others are lower quality and just don't really work. All right, last up from the Chinese brands, we have a watch from Miltado that costs $37. This is a classic field watch, and it's one that was recommended to me by a lot of people on my channel in the community tab when I was looking for good deals. And this watch is very clearly an homage to the Hamilton Khaki Field Mechanical, which is one of the most iconic field watches out there. Now, the watch from Hamilton is Swiss made, it features a mechanical movement, and it runs for around $500. And I actually have that watch. And I really like that watch. And so I was kind of blown away when I opened up this $37 watch from China and found out how closely it compares to the Hamilton original. The biggest difference is that this watch from Miltado is not mechanical. It features a battery-powered quartz movement. But again, this is one of those Seiko movements that has a smooth sweeping second hand, so you wouldn't actually realize that in most situations. Like the watch from Hamilton, this watch ships on a NATO strap. And NATO straps are really fun because they're extremely easy to swap in and out to different ones. I like the one that came with the Miltado, but I have a big box full of 20 millimeter NATO straps, so I had fun swapping this over to a couple different ones as well. The case and the crown of this watch are extremely similar to the Hamilton, but the dial's actually substantially different, so I like that they did go a little bit different direction there. I do like the Hamilton dial layout slightly better. This one on the Miltado feels a little bit crowded because they included 60-minute markings at the very edge of the dial. And this is kind of a small watch at 38 millimeters, so it does feel pretty crowded, but it's not that bad. What's very good is that the sapphire crystal on this watch has better anti-reflective coating than the Hamilton, and it also has substantially better lume. And that kind of makes the Hamilton watch look a little bit ridiculous. I mean, I don't know why Hamilton feels like they can charge $500 for a watch with poor lume and poor anti-reflective coating that can be outdone by a $37 watch from China. This watch also features higher water resistance than the Hamilton with 100 meters of water resistance and a screw-down crown. Again, both features that the much more expensive Hamilton watch doesn't offer. So if you're looking for an extremely affordable classic field watch, this is a great one to go with. All right, let's move into our final category, and that's microbrands. And I was only able to find one microbrand that hits this price point, and that's typical. Most microbrands aren't interested in putting out $100 watches. There's just not enough margin for a small company to make a profit there. But if you can find a good microbrand, a lot of times they give you sort of the best of both worlds. They'll give you fresh original designs. They'll have a brand behind it that's interested in building a brand, and so they'll give you good customer service. And they'll tend to offer you better specifications and components than you would get from a major brand for the same price. And this one watch that I found, even for a $100 micro brand, I think highlights all this very well. So here's the one micro brand I'm including in this video, and I think it's a great representation of what micro brands can offer. You're getting a similar level of specifications and quality that we got from the Chinese watches, but with a little bit more originality and with a brand behind it that actually has a reputation that they're trying to build, so you're more likely to get good customer service from them in the future. Ratio is a Singaporean-based microbrand that's connected to the popular online retailer Creation Watches, and they produce a variety of classic watch styles for extremely affordable prices. I picked up the automatic version of this watch for $105 direct from their website. They also offer a quartz version for $85 if you really want to stay under that $100 price point. Like the other automatic watches we've seen, this has the Seiko NH35 inside of it. And in terms of an overall feeling of quality, I think this watch tops the list out of everything we've seen so far. Maybe the case of the Steeldive overall feels a little bit more sturdy, but the Ratio Freediver has by far the best bracelet of any of the watches that we've looked at. Not only does it feature solid links, it features solid end links, a very nice clasp, and tight tolerances that really give you a feeling of security on the wrist. The style of the case and bracelet is heavily modeled after the Rolex Submariner, but the dial is completely different. And they have a number of fun colors to choose from. That's why I went with this sort of mint green version. To me, the shape of the hands and the markers on the dial give it sort of a laid-back vibe that I think pairs really well with this fresh mint green dial. It just has a real summery beach kind of feel to it. If I were going to swap it over to a strap, I would definitely go with a tropic style rubber strap, maybe even a white one like this one here. Overall, the specifications here are outstanding for this price range. You get a sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating. You get the automatic Seiko NH35 movement inside of it. You get the 200 meters of water resistance with the screw down crown. Overall, for the price, this is a better built, better spec'd watch than the Invicta we looked at earlier, but it's also a very different style. The lume on this watch is slightly better than the Invicta or the Casio, but still not that great or practical. And that's a pattern that we've seen on all the watches that we've looked at today. Right now, it's still really hard to find a sub $100 watch that has really good lume. But overall, in terms of build quality, specifications, design, and branding, I think this watch from Ratio is the best of the bunch that we've looked at today. And for $100, I think it really gives you a great introduction, a little taste of what microbrands are offering these days. And with that, we're through our list of 7 watches. I hope this gave you some good ideas for what's out there in this $100 price point. Let me know if there are any particular ones that you like, or especially if there's other ones that you would recommend. I always love seeing good recommendations in the comments. It makes these videos a lot more useful. If you like this video and you like affordable watches, please consider subscribing to my channel. I've been doing this for 8 years now, and I'm looking forward to continuing it. I forgot to mention it earlier, but my name's Dave. I live in Japan, so I actually try to cover a lot of Japanese watches. Thanks for stopping by, and also don't forget to check out the sponsor of today's video. Use my code to get a discount on your 3-belt bundle, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.